Hey, it's Mike with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Wednesday. It's March 20th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And today was an FOMC announcement day, and you can see where we had the little move up. And notice how the price action still is valid even during a volatile news move. The blue box is really the time that I marked out that you probably wouldn't want to trade. Usually you want to be flat going into about noontime. Usually those announcements come about 1 o'clock. So I'd get flat prior to that. If you were already in a trade here, um, you might stay in it, but I would go ahead and be flat by noon, by 1 o'clock regardless, because you don't want to be short here riding out a little correction or something and this thing suddenly rocket up, or you don't want to get long here and it stop you out before it goes up. So I wouldn't enter any new trades afternoon, and I'd be flat by the very latest, probably 12:45. So just keep that in mind, something to be aware of, because you don't want to get whipsawed. But the one good thing about price action is it's valid even during a news item, and you can see that here. Here's your move, but you can notice this two-tiered channel is holding all the way up. Originally, I had this line right off these first couple of swings, but as this expanded, I was able to adjust it and figure out that this was a two-tiered channel. So, and there's probably another shorter term trend right up here that you could look at as well, going into that 1 o'clock hour. But still a pretty good trading day considering we lost an hour. Well, we really didn't lose. This all happened in about 20 minutes. I think this is we lose about an hour, I guess, hour and 20 minutes. 1 o'clock hit right here. So the majority of this happened between here and 120, and then it kind of settled down again. But you can see from about 12 o'clock, which is where this line is, to 1 o'clock, there's nothing happening. And that's what happens. If you take a trade in there, you get stuck in it, and you can't get out without taking a loss or whatever. And then suddenly the news hits and it goes haywire, and you probably get stopped out with a loss. So that's why it's better off to stay out. But I'm going to back out. We'll talk about the trades. Still a good many trades today, considering pretty good early morning trading as well. But we'll talk about them and we'll wrap the day up. But 7 o'clock hour came right in this little rally right up through here. Prices were coming down. Notice that here's your overnight low, here's your overnight high, and everything's in that. We're actually right in the middle of that. This is mostly probably going to act as a trading range kind of day, and we had a trend up, and now we're probably trend back down to these lows. And notice that we got a little bit lower before prices turned and went down. And I didn't mention this, but I would also measure this leg. And once we started lower again, I'd measure there to there first. And you can see we almost got a perfect measured leg. But in case it's going a little further, I would go ahead and measure this entire move here and have it as your secondary target in case it goes lower. But really, we hit that target on that first leg there, and this is more just kind of sideways stuff, a correction, and that's where the second leg started down. So I'd measure it both ways just to be safe, and that way you've got a target and a secondary target in case it goes a little further. But anyway, we were trending down when I came in, and notice you got a new high and you got a leg down. You get a first entry, and then you get a second entry, and you also draw that trend line right across there. So you get a second entry long right there that fails, and I like going short right there. There's actually a second entry short right here if you count off the lows, but that's not a good enough signal bar, and that's a little bit early anyway. You probably wouldn't have been here. So that's before our 7 o'clock. But when this comes back and confirms that trend line and really gives you a failed second entry long, I like going short right there. It comes back and tests that trend line again and gives you another bearish bar. So if you weren't in here, I would definitely get in, because now you got a second entry short. Notice that low, first entry, second entry. And if I was already in, I'd probably even consider adding on, as long as you got enough room to get out before those lows. But notice what happens. It pushes through, pulls back and tests it once, and then gives you a double test, but it also gives you a second entry short. Notice that low, first entry, and then a second entry short right there. So you get a double test, failed second. This is a double top, so you can treat this like a failed second entry long. A double test of the breakout area. It broke through that support. It comes back and it tests it twice. Bearish bar. Normally I'd want to see this come back to the trend line or EMA, but the fact that it gives you a double test off that, and it's a breakout pullback short, a second entry short, there's enough reasons that I like going ahead and taking that trade. And then we run on down, and notice you got a double top, so that's a new high, then a first entry, and then a second entry. It fails. I marked this one green just simply because we've been away from the EMA a while. There's not much room. That's the low of the day at that point, so there's not much room to get out. Several reasons that I'd be very leery of that trade, but I did go ahead and mark it green. It is a failed second entry long, so the fact that it's going to trap people will probably push it on down. It looks like it didn't trap a whole lot of people, because normally when you get a trap, like right here, you get a big move like that, or right here you get a big move like that, and notice you didn't get much of a move after that. It still went on down and it would have worked, but it didn't rocket down like it does when you get somebody trapped. So keep that in mind. We bounced. There's a second entry short right here. Not a very good setup at all, more sideways, and then it's obvious we're just kind of going sideways here. There's actually some support right across here as well. I ended up moving this up. Originally I had this line down there. I ended up moving it up, but you can see that resistance. I might have said support, I meant resistance. You get a little failed breakout and then a lower high, and it tries to go higher and turns and goes out the other side. You probably couldn't have got in this one. It gaps over, and you'd had to use a limit order, and that's a long way down there close to those lows to be entering on a limit order. The only way I would enter this one probably would be when it broke higher. When it goes out this bottom, I might either have a sell stop right there, or I might drop a limit order a couple of ticks back and see if it'd back up before it comes down. I don't think it would have, because it's dropped really quick. They trapped some people right there. Then of course it fails out the low side. Actually, you get a break here and a new low, and it looks like it's going to try to reverse. You might have actually considered this long. The only reason I don't like it is because you get a close outside here, and you're going long right into the high and right into what was resistance, and then there's secondary. There's room to get out before this one, but there's not much room to get out right here, and that could come into play. There is a trap there, so that may push you on through. So for that reason, you could argue for that one to be green. This is really tempting to take this one. We do have a break and a new high, but you're usually better off to wait on that lower high. You could look at this as a double test, though. Notice that high, and you tested it once, twice, and that is a relatively bearish bar, and this has played out. So for that reason, that's another one you could argue for it to at least be green. And that's one you may take anyway if you want to be a little bit aggressive, because you may catch an important high. We may start that next leg down right there. And that would have been a nice move. I wouldn't enter in any of these, even with a trap here, right into those lows. It's a dangerous place to be going short. This is another one you might consider. A little small bullish bar down here on a failed breakout. Again, you're almost always better off to wait on the higher low right here, so you get a little confirmation that you're making higher lows now. Just remember, in an uptrend, you make higher highs and higher lows. Higher highs, like right here, you make a higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, and then suddenly you make a lower low. But you want to be in an uptrend, you want to be making higher highs and higher lows. So that's the theory behind waiting on a higher low. And if you're working down, you want to be seeing lower lows and lower highs. Lower lows, lower highs, lower low, lower high, lower low. That's a trend. And so then, you want to look for the lower high for confirmation that you reversed again. So just keep that in mind. So again, you may have taken this one. It's a little bit aggressive, but you might take it. But here's your higher low. That's the better place. You still got plenty of room to get out. Moves on up, and you make a little double top. This one's a little tempting to go short, but that's the first break of this, and we hadn't reached the highs, so I'd sit tight. And notice what happens. We come back down. We try to go. We actually get a second entry long right here, which again, you may argue that you could go long there, but I would wait on that higher low, which comes right here. And you can see we make a higher low right there and a nice bullish bar. That's the better place to enter. Again, it takes off pretty quick. You may not have got in that trade. Again, this one you might could order because argue this one to be an aggressive entry, because there really is a couple of three tests. You make that low, you test this same level, you test it again. You push through here both times, but you're still closed way above it. That's telling you something. It's similar to a retest. There's a failed second entry short here, but it's right into these highs. It would have worked, but I wouldn't take any of that. And notice I just need to, I didn't pull this all the way across. But you don't want to be going long into that. So I don't see any trades I really like here unless you're looking to go short, which you get a failed second entry long right here. And it does, if you draw that trend line off those swings, it confirms it. Relatively bearish bar. So I like going short right there. You got room to get out before here. And this one just takes off. And you may have looked at this as a breakout pullback short with a failed second entry long, but it's right in there and it's right near that low, so I just skip it. And you really just don't get a chance to, that signal bar is not very good. It's more bullish. So you really just don't get a good chance to enter that one. It's a shame, but that's the way it works. But it comes back to that trend line again. There's a key entry point right off of it. This one, you may want to take that, but it's, you know, it's still, this trend line's still in play, and that makes it kind of iffy, but that's a key entry point. And that's been a pretty strong downtrend, and we don't quite have a measured leg yet. So you might want to try that one. You're better off to wait on the lower high, which comes right here at a nice bearish bar, and then you get a failed second entry long. And you could actually treat that like a second entry short, because you got first entry, you tried to go up again, and even though you didn't make a higher low, you made that little two bar matching low. So that's still in all essence a second entry short counting off the lows, and a failed second entry long counting off the highs. Either way, a nice bearish bar, and look at it go. And what happened is they probably trapped longs right here. People trying to pick bottoms, and then the bottom falls out of it. And then this is just kind of taking us into the 12 noon hour that we talked about. There's a failed second entry short there, but this is still in the downtrend. I'm probably not going to take that. And you really don't get another long or short setup until you get into the noon hour there. And you can see not much happened at all from noon to 1 o'clock. And what it is, everybody's just kind of waiting on the news. Everybody stops buying and selling, and they're just waiting on the news, and suddenly it comes out, and boom, the market must have liked what it heard. And we got a two-tiered channel working higher. And this is about where things got pretty nice right here, or, you know, started to calm down, I guess I should say. And you bounced here, and then you make a first entry short, second entry short, and you've got a shorter term trend line working up here. Nice bearish bar. This is also a little breakout pullback long from these highs right across here. I like going long right there. It's actually went, it actually makes a double bottom here. It tried to go lower, and then it turns and goes up here. Without it breaking lower, I doubt I'd put a buy stop right there, but you might buy it when it broke higher, but I'd wait. Generally, you want to wait on your signal bar to close unless it broke lower first. Then you might jump in there. But with it like this, I'd wait on it to close, because a lot of times it'll turn back up and then end up closing down here and go down again. So you got to be careful with that. But it is a trap right there, so, and a breakout pullback long. So I wouldn't have a problem going long right there. We actually get another breakout here. You do have a little bit of a close outside that trend line right there. You can see it starting to fade over, so I'd probably skip that one. Another second entry long right here, but look how sideways that is. We do have a break in a new high too. But it gets back over here, and notice you made a high, first entry, second entry. Now you got a second entry long off the bigger trend line, and you really got a double test. You made this low, you tested it once. You actually have a double test right here. You made the low once, twice. This is the better double test, but this is second entry long, counting off the high, possible double test, maybe a little trap, so you may catch a major low there, and then the higher low, and really you had like a little double, you had a little failed breakout right there, but I would just measure that and move it up, and you can see you got a perfect, that would have been a good target off that little range right there. Then you're just kind of bumping along the sides here, and you might consider a short really right here. That's so sideways, and with that midline being right in there, let me put that in there because it's a little hard to see for people that aren't used to seeing it. You can see that midline. Do you want to go short right into that midline? Probably not. And there is a little failed break lower here with a bullish bar, but it's an inside bar. It's not really the signal bar. This one is. So again, with it being that close to 2 o'clock, I'd probably skip that. And you can see it didn't go very far before it reversed. And so that got you into the 2 o'clock hour. So really considering it was an FOMC day and we lost an hour to 15 minutes or hour and 20 minutes of trading, still had some fairly good movement and some pretty good trades here today. So not a bad day actually. And this was fairly straightforward over here. Your one leg down, your correction, and then your second leg down. And it was basically a perfect measured move based off this leg right here. So not a bad day. Anyway, that's pretty much it for today. So I'm not going to beat around the bush and drag this out. Hope you had a good trading day. And notice one other thing before I wrap it up. This is where the news started and we rocketed up. And guess what almost always happens? If you hadn't heard me say this before, generally prices will reverse at some point and take all the news move back and kind of reset and start over. And that's exactly what happened. We came all the way back down to where it started by the end of the day. We actually dropped a little bit further right into there, basically right where it started, and now we're going higher again. And so you'll see that a lot on news item before the day is over, and if not before the day is over, probably by the next day, prices generally it happens in the same day. Prices will take all of a big news move back relatively quickly. So always be prepared for that. When this thing reverses and starts heading down, it's probably headed back to this where it started. It's like a retest and a reset all in one. So keep that in mind. That's an important thing to know and understand about the ES. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.